All right, what is going on, guys? Hope you are well, wherever you are, whatever the damn time. And as you can tell by the title, this weekend was very successful. Show number 3 was very good. I apologize for the lack of coverage on the show and also the lead up to the show. I didn't really go into too much detail about what I was doing for my peak and just obviously the previous 2 show days I'd done daily vlogs leading into that peak. I'm going to be real, this week was very hectic because I was traveling to stay with my grandmother for this show. Alongside that, keeping on top of client work, etc., and just trying to minimize stress rather than having to worry about daily vlogs on top of that. And as I said to you in the last show day vlog, I wanted to kind of just give an overview. Now, I did intend on filming the show day or the whole weekend for the WNBF and just compiling it into one video. But with the footage that I've got, it just wouldn't make for a very engaging video. So, and to be honest, this might not even be very engaging either, but gonna be a lot more engaging than just random clips of what meal I'm having and whatnot. I thought I'd just explain what I'd done through the peaking process, the whole weekend. Obviously, Ollie competed as well on the day before me as well, and what's next for me in terms of my season and how I'm feeling about everything at the minute. So get yourself some coffee or not, or a meal, or whatever the hell it is you're doing, and sit tight because over the weekend we picked up that. In fact, I'm going to spin it around. Look at that. Not too shabby. So firstly, I'm going to start off with Ollie, my client, who competed on a Saturday. And I mean, what I will say first and foremost is shout out to the WNBF for actually splitting their show into 2 days, because it was rough when it was just one day. It was just way too long, too many categories. You ended up having classes on really late into the night. So splitting it into 2 days honestly worked really well. And both days were really well run. There was no real issues. They started and finished at a reasonable time. There was nothing to complain about with it. It was done really well. Ollie competed on the Saturday. He competed in the junior tall class. Short class for junior was an incredibly high standard, really good. Brandon G, who trains at EP Jungle, won that class, and he went on to win the overall as well and deserved. He's a freak. Ollie done the tall class. We wanted to come in, or I decided that I wanted him to be fuller than what he was for the BNBF, because he was a bit flat for prejudging for the BNBF. At finals, he improved, and it was just a case of him putting in a bit more water and food. I was like, you know what, let's turn the dial up a little bit in terms of fullness, and we definitely did. Now, I think he was a little bit spilled over, and I think condition could be improved for sure. So that's what we're working on. His next show is this weekend, but we will likely not peak for this upcoming show. We will essentially just carry on our process of fat loss, with our main focus being the UKDFBA finals, which I'm confident he can qualify for, just through the level of quality muscle that he has. On the day, he ended up finishing 4th out of, I believe, was about 9 or 10 athletes. Top 3 was really good. Guy in 3rd place was peeled, which when you're full and you haven't got the same condition and you're standing next to somebody like that, it can hurt you. And then the 1st place guy, good level of muscularity, decent conditioning, tall, imposing, really good physique. So I think it's just a case of him getting sharper. He was actually told by one of the judges after the show, he's got the most potential up there. It's just a case of him getting a bit sharper. So that's an easy fix. It's just work hard, right? It's just get the food down and get back to it. Just live in that suck for a little bit. I'm super proud of him. He improved his stage presence as well on stage. He looked a lot more confident than the BNBF, with that obviously being his first show ever. I think that was pretty much it on Saturday with myself. So I was down to compete on the Sunday, right? But we're going to rewind it. I travelled to stay with my grandmother, who lives in Luton, on the Thursday. So got all my stuff together, which by the way was a ball ache. I basically took my whole entire life in a multitude of bags, everything that was needed. And that obviously includes my stuff for work. That includes stuff for prep, for show day, an excessive amount, and also just making sure that I've got enough things to make me feel comfortable in a different environment. Now, I was a little bit, I don't know, like skeptical, because although it's my grandmother, I don't want to impose on somebody's space. I'd rather sometimes just have my own space and just get on with it, as opposed to have to worry if I'm in somebody's way or in somebody's hair. and vice versa, right? And of course, it's my grandmother and she's going to welcome me into her home. But when that involves me obviously getting ready for a contest, how much is that going to throw off her routine? Are there certain expectations that come with me just being in the house with my grandmother? You know, so there was that I was thinking about. I don't think I was hugely stressed, but I think subconsciously I maybe might have been. And also, I think being in my grandmother's house, I don't know if it was dust or anything, my breathing immediately was thrown off. So I was having moments in my grandmother's house where I was struggling to like breathe because I'm asthmatic, right? And that was throwing things off. I'm very like health conscious and anxious about my health. So I think that triggered like some panic in me or whatnot. So there was that factor, right? That was happening for a couple of days whilst I was there. At this period of time, I am carbing up. So I was slowly titrating up my food. Strangely, my body weight wasn't rising in the way that I expected it to. I was using the same scales that I have at home here, but I was using my grandmother's. I was reading lighter than what I had been for the BNBF. Now, BNBF, I was 97.3 kilos. I felt it. I felt full. This time, I didn't feel that same level of fullness, essentially eating the same food going into the show. Until the day before the show, I was like, right, I'm going to push food today, one day out. And the plan was 900 grams of carbs. Okay, so I was going through that day on the Saturday when Ollie was competing, planning to consume 900 grams of carbs. And I started getting that feeling of a lot of fullness at about 2-ish. So I was like, right, okay, I'm going to have my last meal at about 4. It wasn't 900 grams of carbs at this point. It was probably about 7. It was, with that meal 4 going in, it probably would have been about 750. And I also finished my total water for the day at about 5:30, 6 p.m. So I stopped drinking water a lot earlier than what I normally do. Because at that point I was like, okay, I'm full and I don't really want to worry about being too watery on show day. I can always just put in a little bit more food. So I started the process of drying out that night, took 2000 milligrams of vitamin C with that 4th meal, and then with my final meal, that was without carbohydrates, which was just chicken and almond butter. And that was kind of just a quick judgment call because I didn't want to spill over too much. Woke up in the morning, pretty damn dry. It worked. And just that slight manipulation of water and starting the process of diuresis the night before. I didn't want to start doing that on show day because I feel like that would just flatten me out a little bit too quickly. At this point, I just have to sort out my final coat of tan, register the day before, sorry. Polygraph as well, that was all done, ticked off, which I passed, by the way. Weird experience though. Yeah, from that point on, I then had 2 meals. Each meal had 100 grams of carbs. I reintroduced some water, but just not as much as my typical baseline. It was like half of my baseline throughout the day. And I was just getting fuller and fuller, but not still pretty dry. Prior to going on stage, I was just topping up with rice cakes, squares bars based on feeling, based on look, obviously not in extremely close proximity to me stepping on stage. So that was the peaking process. It was definitely a lot different to what I had done previously, where I hadn't really manipulated water. I hadn't really, well, I'd used Peak Max for the BNBF, but I hadn't really adjusted my water intake or anything like that, or cut off when I had a certain amount of water. I didn't completely eliminate water, just adjusted the timings of when I was drinking, right? And it actually seemed to have paid off a bit. I was, happy with how I actually looked in the morning, and I could easily manipulate that look to look really good. So anyway, pre-stage, pumped up. With pumping up, I feel like I don't know, I can't really pump up that well with resistance bands. I actually feel like I need dumbbells. I want it to feel, when I'm pumping up, I want it to feel like I'm actually in the gym. Because when do you look your best? You look your best post-workout, probably after a training session where you've used weights, you haven't used resistance bands. I just don't feel like I can get that same level of fullness just using bands. The heavyweight class was good. Some big guys, I think I had a great combination of size and conditioning. I think I was one of the most conditioned guys up there. I think Jermaine was the most conditioned guy, but I just had that size over him. It was his first year in heavyweight, but he looked great, dry. Yeah, incredible conditioning. I think I was pretty close to him in terms of conditioning, with just added size essentially. But yeah, the class was like 6 or 7 guys, and I think my favorite look of this season, especially in terms of just how I felt on stage, I felt solid, I felt full, I didn't feel watery whatsoever, and I definitely attribute that to that slight tweak in my strategy with the peak, and then also the food and the strategy throughout the day as well. Just keeping water in, obviously, but just not getting excessive with it. I think I timed it pretty well. Every time you compete, you get nervous. You don't know what the result is going to be. Even when you feel relatively confident, you have no idea. You just don't know. But I kind of got a good idea because they were essentially moving people around me. And what was different about this WNBF show in comparison to your standard show, right, is from each class, the standard was so incredibly high. They were taking like 2 or 3 people, most of the time 2, from the classes to the overall. We get to the overall. Adam has also made it to the overall. He came second in the middleweight class. With Adam, it is just a case of getting sharper. He's got a stupendous shape, a ridiculous level of muscularity, especially with the body weight that he's at. But it's just a case of just dialing it down even more, and then he'll be ridiculous. He knows that. He's a professional. He knows that. We also have in there Dario, who won the novice heavyweight. Dante's client, who also won the BNBF Midlands overall. And we also had in there, I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name, I'm super sorry. He's already a pro in another federation, I believe, and he won the middleweight class. And yeah, it was just a big overall, right? And the standard was ridiculously high. Obviously, these are the top 2 competitors of each class throughout the day. Bear in mind, throughout the day, there's 100 plus competitors, and now that's whittled down to 12, right, on stage. So everyone is obviously pretty decent. We go through the rounds. I feel like my posing conditioning improved a lot from the BNBF, which was something that I wanted to work on. I feel like my conditioning with posing wasn't as good at the BNBF. I was struggling to hold poses a lot more. I didn't feel that as much this time. Now, of course, there's other factors involved, like the lighting, how hot it is, etc., etc. But still, I felt that that had improved. So we go through the rounds, we're moving around pretty well. I'm staying relatively close to the middle. And I believe it essentially boils down to 3 of us, right? Dario, myself, and the middleweight winner. And then I also think it's close between Adam and myself. So for the first time, they essentially make it possible for 3 people to pick up pro cards in that overall. And with the WNBF, I think they base it off of standard, right? So if you have a pro-worthy physique, you're against somebody who just has a better pro-worthy physique. I think they'll offer a pro card to both of those physiques. Now, in the classes earlier, they were doing the same. So, for example, in Classic, they gave Toyton the overall, right? No brainer. But I think his name is Peter or Petru, Josh Campbell's client, who I faced in the overall at the PCA show. He also got a WNBF pro card because it's a pro level physique. So there were multiple WNBF pros crowned at this one, right? And for the first time of me ever competing, I was out of the top 2. I've never come third ever in a bodybuilding show that I've done. I've never become lower than second, right? And I came third, and I was also awarded a pro card, which amazing. Still can't really explain it. Like in the moment, it's just a bit of a shock. You're pleased that you got that card. You're just like, oh, you're just, yeah, completely overwhelmed. But then it wasn't until I left the venue and thought about the journey to get here and how long I've been training and my persistence through certain circumstances. For example, through the lockdowns and building a scaffold gym in my mum's garden to keep training and investing so much money. And when I first started training, going to the gym group in Wembley, and when I moved back in with my mum, and just like doing long shifts. So I used to work in hospital, doing long shifts. I'd do like 14-hour shifts, and then so I'd work 14, yeah, like 14-hour shifts. So my shift would be like 7:30 to 9:30, and then I'd go to the gym after that shift, and people would think that I was crazy. Yeah, it just all those moments. It feels like it all just culminates to, oh, okay, it's paid off. Like I've always been working to improve my physique, and there hasn't been a situation where that's ever faltered. That hasn't changed. I haven't tried to rush the process. As I said, I've been doing this for 10 years now. This is my 10th year. Yeah, but all in all, it was a fantastic day, and I've ticked off what I wanted to tick off really in terms of competing this year. The final goal for me is to compete abroad, which will be happening next week on Saturday. So I'll be flying to Italy on Thursday with B. We're going to Bologna. I'll be competing in the FCFN finals, which is basically a DFAC federation. That'll be for me to hopefully get a DFAC pro card if you win the overall. I believe that's how they structure it. So yeah, super excited to get to Italy. But honestly, there probably won't really be a peak into that show. I'll just maintain my body weight where I'm currently at. I'll just hover and just sustain my body weight and step on stage. I'm already in very good condition. I'm already relatively full, although the scale is again saying differently. Like, for example, this morning I was 95.6 kilos. I've then got the final show of the year, which will be the PCA finals. And I really want to do that PCA finals because it was a really well-run show and I would like a PCA pro card. That's the game plan, and that's how the WNBF weekend went, which was a fantastic weekend. The only shame was that B wasn't there with me. I literally done the entire thing on my own that weekend. Bodybuilding is a lot different when you don't have those people with you to celebrate those things with. Do you know what I mean? So, but as I said, B's going to be with me at Italy, and we're also going to get a chance to have some downtime in Italy as well, especially after the show, just enjoy ourselves. And there's definitely a lot less internal pressure on myself to tick off that goal. And as I was finalizing or closing out this season, that window of pro card, obviously it gets smaller and smaller. But now that I've got it, it's almost just liberated me a little bit, just personally. And I feel like I can breathe a little bit. It doesn't mean that I'm going to end up being sloppy, because that thing right there essentially proves that I conduct myself as a professional and as somebody who lives this lifestyle. That's also a way that I want to conduct post-show as well, and show people how an actual pro natural bodybuilder should conduct post-show. And I appreciate you guys watching. If you made it this far, leave a comment saying WNBF Pro, and I will see you in Italy.